pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Belinda, will you do roll call, please?
Sure. Bill Scarborough,
Here.
Joe Sucha.
Here.
Belinda Billings here, Brian Galley,
Here.
Jason Borsheim,
Here.
Ron Ritchie, absent, Tom Patel. Absent.
Okay, we just barely have a quorum. Review the agenda. Do we have any changes?
I motion that we approve tonight's agenda as posted.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Welcome to tonight's Planning Commission meeting. Agendas for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Agendas and meetings of prior meetings are available on the township website. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda we just approved. Other individuals in attendance tonight representing the township are our planning consultants, Carlisle Wortman Associates, and our engineering consultant, Noah and Frost, and our planning director, Brian Oppman, who I think has just left temporarily.
Bill, do you hear like a ringing, like,
I don't.
and
Anybody else?
Little feedback in the mic.
feedback? That's what I'm trying to say, yes.
I feel a little. Yeah,
I don't know who can take care of that, but it's
Maybe
been very
Brian when
annoying
he
for the
comes
whole
back.
night.
maybe that's where he went, to take care
Maybe
of it.
so.
He went to get that lighting plan because I forgot to tell him about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is public comments for items not on the agenda. This is an opportunity for people in our audience to bring up issues or topics that are not specifically mentioned on our agenda. Items on the agenda, you will be provided an opportunity to comment on items on our agenda as those items come up. So again, this is just for open discussion on items that are not on the agenda. Please raise your hand. You will be recognized. We ask you to come to the podium and state your name and address, and state your remarks for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks should be addressed to the Planning Commission, not to anyone else in the room. And in an effort to keep this meeting moving forward, we ask you to be brief and try not to repeat things that have been previously mentioned. And finally, we ask for everybody in the audience to please turn off your cell phones. So with that, I will open the public comment sections for items not on the agenda. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mark Newsom. I live at 9410 Ortonville Road, roughly just south of Hadley and M15, right on M15. I'm here
I
tonight.
text her about something, but,
Everybody online, please mute your mics. Go ahead.
This is not the first time I've been up at this podium, and I can only wish it's the last. I've been a resident for 30 years. Across the street from my house, they built Bridgewood Church 20 years ago exactly, 2004. Everybody that was in attendance at the time did not want the church. They built the church, and this planning commission is the one that approved it. So that's why I'm here tonight, because you started the problem. And when I say a problem, this is going to be not only a problem today, but for the future. When they started their expansion, I, as a due diligence neighbor, started looking into it, and I found a whole lot of stuff that had happened on the property for the 20 years that should have never happened without our permission. Namely, the parking lot got expanded 3 times. Nothing was ever done as far as like lighting, curbs, nothing like that. And it's still to this day, it hasn't. But that's here nor there, because they're going to expand and everything will be fixed, per se. But my main reason up here tonight is because of sound. The church has found it necessary to play music outside on Wednesday evenings all last summer because they have what the, like a kid service outdoors if the weather is permitting. They have a PA system, loudspeakers, and I can hear it clearly in my house. I mean, I could sing along with the music. It's that bad. Even over N15's traffic. Because this is more in the evening than it is during the day, because it gets over like at 9 at night. I did my due diligence last year. I came before this board. I went and seen the supervisor. He pawned me off twice, once to Brian, and the other time to Jennifer, I think her name was, his assistant or whatever. Nothing has ever been done to resolve the problem. And the reason, it's against the ordinances. Section 8.13 states there shall be no outside loudspeakers or amplified sound outside a totally enclosed building except for bells, a call to prayer, or similar circumstances. Well, I have no problem with Wednesday evening kid services outside. Let them scream, let them yell. It's kids having fun. More power to them. I got grandkids and kids myself. But the music is unnecessary. Totally unnecessary. Well, I complained all last summer about this because it only happened on Wednesday nights. Well, this last Sunday, and I warned them. I warned the ordinance department. You guys let this go. Other churches are gonna do it, or they're gonna do it on different days. Well, lo and behold, Sunday, they have 3 services. They started playing music outside before the first service. I'm talking just a little after 7 in the morning on Sunday, until almost 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. I got to listen to music. Out in my garden, I got to listen to friggin' music I did not want to listen to. I shouldn't have to listen to. And like I said, last year it was only on Wednesdays, now it's on a Sunday too. So when is this gonna end? When are other churches going to start doing this? You know how many churches are in Clarkston that don't do this? You know how many people can get pissed from music that's against the rules? I mean, they only have 3 rules to obey to for a religious service, a house of religious services. 3 rules, and they're breaking one of them. And nobody will do anything about it. I hate to say it, but I will start taking this into my own hands. I know I have a loudspeaker system. I have a hell of a stereo. I will play the Quran. Do you think 700 people want to listen to the Quran every Sunday morning? A call to prayer? I mean, come on. So please, will somebody on this board do something about this? Look into it. Don't just blow me off. Just a resident bitching. I'm not bitching because if other churches start doing it, what are you gonna do? You created the problem, please fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, did you want to comment? You're probably aware of it.
Yeah, we are. We've had conversations with the church about the noise issue, the fact that they're outside during their summer school that they have. You know, but I will follow up with the pastor at the church, and we'll see what we can do to get him to knock it off completely. But we've done sound meter readings out there.
Well, that's the problem.
In front of
They're
Mr.
not supposed
Newsom.
to have sound.
Sir, let him answer, please.
We've done sound meter readings outside of Mr. Newsom's house, and it's, unfortunately with the road noise, it's inaudible. I mean, so, I mean, that's at the property line where you're supposed to measure it. But I understand Mr. Newsom's concern. I've talked to him many times about it, and, we'll continue to follow up with the church.
Thank you.
Excuse me, there was even another neighbor of mine here today complaining, so it's not just me.
Okay. All right, anybody else
I'm Bill Honey.
in the audience like to comment?
I don't know exactly. He's a-
Having none, I'll close the public comment for items not on the agenda. Next,
No, not.
next item is a public hearing.
It's not closed, no.
We have none.
Yeah, okay.
Next item is regular business,
Wait, can we ask a question about that?
if you'd like to.
I would like to. Was the sound study done on a Wednesday night when they were playing music?
No.
Okay, that'd be a big difference.
Well, unfortunately, you know, if it's a service which doesn't show up on their website, you know, we can only measure sound at certain times of the day, so, with a calibrated sound meter. So regardless of whether there's music or not, it's inaudible at the property line. When
It's
cars are
inaudible
going
if they're not
65.
playing music, but
Oh,
I'm just
no,
saying.
no, stop.
Okay,
Stop for a second. It's inaudible because cars are going 65 miles an hour and the road noise is what we pick up on the sound meter. So, no matter what.
well, if you've not done it when they're playing music, how would you know?
Okay. Well,
The fact that he can even measure the sound shows that they are playing sound they're not supposed to play.
Okay. All right, moving on. Planning Commission procedure, it was included in the packet. I made an attempt to, put together sort of a step-by-step process that, we could follow when hearing the various applications in front of us. In summary, the first items 1 and 2, I intended to be an introduction to the project for the benefit of the audience, the online audience, as well as anybody that might watch it online. Steps 3 and 4 would be an opportunity to discuss the various issues as seen by Mr. Carlisle and various planning commission members. Item 5, and that would be an opportunity to do that so that the community would be aware of what we see as issues or benefits before they have an opportunity to talk. So then the next item would be public hearing. And then 6 and 7 would be an opportunity for the applicant to respond to those issues and then have some further discussion about those issues. And then I would maybe group 8, 9, and 10 as a conclusion. And that was my thought process. Obviously open to what everybody else thinks, and if you think this is a good idea to follow this, so that we have some consistency and a smooth presentation.
Yeah, I think it's great that you put this together, and in my mind, that's how I view the meeting flow as well. If you get too much into the details up front before you let the consultants and experts' comments, some questions may be answered then that you already had, so this keeps it from turning into a long tennis match. So,
Yeah.
No, good job.
Thank you.
It's
Anybody else?
good flow.
So, I guess I don't,
Here's the hand,
oh, Joe, I'm sorry.
Can I go back to this for one brief second?
please.
No, let's stay on one topic and then we'll finish this.
Okay, we'll come
one.
back, because I'd just like to know what our role is and responsibility is, because I'm not
Yeah,
entirely clear about this.
we'll come back to that.
All right.
I agree.
So this is just an informal thing, I don't think we need a motion or anything, but, if everybody maybe, I don't know, keep this handy with you at meetings in case you're wondering where we are in the process or something, and we'll try and follow it. Okay? Thanks. Next item, PC file 202, oh, I'm sorry, we're gonna come back to Joe's.
Just a question, it was, and I'm not disputing his comment at all, but he said it was our responsibility because we did something. And I know he wasn't talking about us because we weren't here, but the planning commission. So if that is true, what is our responsibility, or is it totally the administration's responsibility? Or is it something we follow up on, or I'd just like to know what our role is?
Well, I'll take an
And
attempt to
I'm
answer
not
that.
expecting that you have the answer necessarily.
I'll attempt.
Okay.
I'm sure Brian will correct me if I'm wrong. I'll ask him to correct me. I don't see the role of the planning commission as being enforcement. And, so although I sympathize with the gentleman, and we can certainly ask and encourage Brian to look into it and the various staff, but our role is not enforcement. I would imagine that his next step, if he can't get satisfaction, the township board is responsible for all operations in the township. And that's where I would suggest he goes if he cannot get the satisfaction he desires from other means.
Just to add on to that, we're currently reviewing the construction plans for the church now. I know, and Mr. Newsom and I had talked about this several times, about the lack of site plan compliance from the previous church and the additional things that were never planted, or things that occurred in the previous, the original submittal, which was back in '03, '04, or maybe '05, I can't remember now. But now that we have a new site plan that's been approved, I assured Mr. Newsom that what we do now with site plan compliance between the planning department and the building department are 100% done to a T. So, and he can chuckle about it, but that's reality. And you can ask any builder or contractor who's working in the community, it happens the same way. So, and Bridgewood Church still has a long ways to go. We haven't approved the construction plans yet. They haven't posted any bonds or letter of credit to hold their feet to the fire on the fact that they need to install the proper landscaping and screening to the west and the east and so forth that was approved as part of the site plan last year.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Question. I hear a common thread, enforcement or lack of. So if the planning commission approves the site plan and it's not enforced, who does take care of that?
Well, I'm talking about what happened in 2003 and 4 and 5. We all weren't enforcement mechanisms here. That was the previous building department administration. It's no longer here.
I know, but now is the problem, so who enforces that?
Well, it's not a problem right now. He's talking about the previous stuff that was approved back 20 years ago.
Noise, please.
Well,
Everything else will be taken care of.
but Bill and I would say, if we approve a site plan and the project gets developed and you see some things that you don't think met the site plan approval, you would take it to Brian.
Yes.
And if you don't think Brian's jumping on it, bring it to the planning commission.
Well, I think that's what he's done.
Well, but as he said, I'm aware, I think we've had a lot of discussions about some claims of things that weren't enforced in the past. And it's not up to us to correct that, but we have to worry about what gets done going forward and what we approve. Joe?
What's the relationship between sound and the site plan, or site plan approval?
Well, he had mentioned there are deficiencies in the original site plan that were never done. So sound is a completely separate issue.
But that's the one he was talking to us about.
I know.
Well, I found out they were supposed to play sound when I investigated the churches with due diligence. It was like, they're not supposed to play sound?
So it's in our municipal code, is what you're saying?
Yes, 8.13, line 2.
Okay?
Well, okay, so just to
Yeah.
recap quickly. So it's not a site plan violation or anything, sound I'm talking about only, right?
It's code enforcement violation if we can measure sound and that's accurate at that time that it's playing, yes.
Oh, it is, okay, but not site plan, but, okay, but code enforcement. I'm just trying to get the terms straight here, because it's
Yeah,
like
it's all code
confusing.
enforcement.
Okay. So this is a code enforcement issue, he comes to you,
not me, no, the code enforcement officer,
Code-
but yes,
yeah.
my department,
Okay, yeah,
we have 420 some odd complaints a year, so yes, we
Okay, yeah.
investigate every single one of them.
okay, good. So then, if you get to satisfy whatever his complaint is on the sound issue, it goes away, everybody's happy. If not, what's the next step? In other words, if they continue to play music, you don't have the ability to measure it because of truck noise
Well,
or whatever, I don't know.
I mean, we have a process that's been approved by the court and in our ordinance on enforcement. So you send a first notice of violation. If they fail to correct it within 10 days, we send a second notice of violation, and then we ticket the property owner. So we know who the pastor of the church is because he submitted an application a year ago. So we typically, in this case, would reach out to him, which we've done already once. So, that's how we probably proceed at this point, you know, and we'll have, and then we follow up with a letter, so.
Okay, so that would be the process for the sound violation.
Correct,
So-
and that's the case for any
And
code
that's-
enforcement violation
Right, right.
in the township.
Okay, but apparently that hasn't been the process that's been followed so far on this issue?
No.
Am I not understanding this?
Not true,
Okay,
but no,
so they got a letter but nothing happened.
no, we've communicated with the pastor multiple times.
Did they get the letter?
No, we never sent a letter because we did it by electronically.
Okay, and then what was the consequences of him not obeying you?
Well, I mean, this is the first time Mr. Newsom brought it to our attention again this year,
Oh, okay.
so.
All right. Okay, I'm just trying to
I mean,
understand what's going
When we
on.
were investigating, it was last fall, and then it came into winter. So, obviously, you're not outside playing music.
Okay, moving along. PC file 2023-012. Petitioner CWP West LLC, address 6440 Dixie Highway. The applicant is requesting to construct a new car wash on the old Big Boy property on Dixie Highway. Mr. Carlisle, would you like to summarize the project?
Yeah. There have been a number of revisions, which we've noted in our report. A fence has been proposed to extend further to the southeast, and a detail of that has been provided. The sidewalk to the north of the driveway has been replaced with an 8-foot wide sidewalk. Entrance taper has been provided. Maybe some of these things are things that Jason will bring up. The extending sidewalk from Dixie Highway, sidewalk extension from Dixie Highway into the site has been provided. The benches that the commission wanted to see have been provided in the seating area. Trip generation memo has been provided. There have been revised architectural elevations provided, and those are in your packet. There's some graphic depiction of the entry stacking and exit spaces shown on the site plan, and a signage plan has been provided. There are a couple of additional items that we have requested that were not provided. The revised lighting plan was not included in the plan that verifies that our ordinance standards of 3,500 K have been met, and we don't have verification of that. There is a minor issue with one of the size of the plant materials on the landscape plan. We wanted some indication that the fence height is sufficient. I'm not concerned about it screening the entire site, but in particular, I'm concerned, as I have been, about the lighting from the archway or canopy. We want to make sure that there is sufficient screening to screen that light from the neighboring residential areas. And then the final issue was, I think I missed it, I passed over that. The issue of the cross-access easement was not, well, it's been addressed, but they are not providing that on the plans as the commission had requested at the previous meeting. So I think that's those are the items that have been addressed. And those are the items that have not been addressed. Oh, also, we need some verification that the sign illumination standards have been met. Those are the items that need to be addressed. Is this the time to ask for questions?
No.
Okay. I've got to get the new procedure down.
Yeah. Is the applicant here, online or here? I'm not asking you to address any of the issues yet, the things that aren't addressed, just as if you want to add anything regarding the general description of the property. We'll give you an opportunity to address some of the issues after we all get an opportunity to just basically give you an idea of what we think they are.
Yeah, sure. So, and my name is Chuck Boyd, and I'm from Naderveld, and we are land planners, civil engineers, and surveyors. So our client is Mr. Car Wash. Chris Campbell is here from the Mr. Car Wash team. So Mr. Carlisle did a pretty good job of describing everything, and I won't take up too much time, just a little bit of a rehash, right? So we had discussed with a subcommittee of the Planning Commission back in November of 2023, the idea of our special land use, presented a layout. We listened to some of the comments at that time. We were before you then on December the 14th. For our special land use. Some of the issues discussed there were, general support of the architecture, but a few details that were requested then. Some comments about pushing the building forward, beefed up landscaping. We listened to those comments at that time, and we think we made those improvements and came with a good plan. So then the most recent submittal, we presented, and there was further discussion, and now you see the kind of final plan that's before you today. So ultimately, what I just wanted to say is every step along the way, we have listened. We think we've responded appropriately. We've responded sufficiently. Certainly, there are certain things that maybe come up in this discussion that require a little bit further kind of detail. But I think in general, we've tried to listen to the comments of staff, of engineers, of this planning commission. And I think just on behalf of the client, I think we've been very receptive to your constructive criticism and your sort of comments for an improved site, and we think we've achieved that. So we're here to answer questions today.
Okay, thank you. PC members, do you have any issues you want to discuss that you still see with the site plan? Joe?
This may not be worth the site plan specifically, so tell me if I'm going off base and stop me. Who would be the local contact person here in Michigan to address issues that come up if and when this became an operational car wash?
Would you like me to address that now?
Sure.
So good evening, Commission. My name is Chris Campbell. I'm the Director of Development for Mr. Car Wash. So all of our stores have a general manager who oversee the individual store. We also have site managers, assistant managers. Those general managers report up to a regional manager who oversees 6 to 8 stores. And then the regional manager reports up to the Director of Operations. For this region, our Director of Operations is actually, I think, based in Tucson, but the regional manager would be local to the Detroit metro area. So if you weren't able to get a resolution from your general manager, we could take that to our regional manager. Again, they're local to not necessarily this township, but certainly
Right.
the area.
But not Texas.
Right, exactly, yep.
Anybody else?
Okay,
Linda?
I'm trying to follow your thinking. Is this a question on anything on their site plan?
Yes.
Okay, because I did print mine out. I always print mine out because I like to be able to write and make notes. But I was looking at the landscape plan, and I'm just wondering, I mean, I had my magnifying glass here, and I can't even tell for sure. How many trees are there total that are going in?
Offhand, I don't know. I'm certain whatever code required, we meet that.
Okay, I just feel like if we're approving something, we should know how many trees and shrubs are going in. I mean, we do have we talk about green space and landscape and buffers, and I would like to know, because I can't read this, it's so small.
Who's got a full-size set? Look at the landscape plan. There's a table in the landscape plan, but if you didn't pull out a, there it is. The table to the right there, Ms. Carlisle, right there, that table.
So the trees, is that 40?
28, 35, 42 trees.
42, okay. And 134 shrubs.
I'd have to add it up, so I'll take your word for it.
Okay. And I did have one question too, again, and Brian and Dick, I'm sure you're gonna get mad at me for asking this, but I'm new to the planning commission, so please bear with me and help me understand.
Sure.
On this site plan, it says, maybe I should come read it from there. It talks about if any of the trees or shrubs die, they'll be replaced. For what period of time?
Excuse me. Well, theoretically in perpetuity. Because it is.
And they'll be maintained in perpetuity.
Correct,
So
because
it's, everything is approved according to this plan,
correct.
because, okay, all right.
Excuse me. Because, I mean, in particular, well, first of all, it is all required by the ordinance. So if, for whatever reason, it disappears, it's a, and we are aware of it, it's a violation of the site plan.
So if someone in the township were to make a complaint to Brian or someone at the township, then it would be investigated and enforcement would take a look at it, okay, in perpetuity.
Yeah.
I'm only asking that.
If it is required landscaping,
Okay.
if it is, and we have many sites that have additional landscaping. What we enforce is that which is required by your ordinance, which are the front green belt, the parking lot landscaping, the buffer requirements. And the buffer requirement, all three of those are really particularly critical. But if there's some ancillary landscaping that happens to be replaced or die or whatever, that's not part of our ordinance, so we don't enforce that.
One more question I had. The fence that you were speaking about earlier, it says 6 foot on this plan.
Correct.
And I thought I remember hearing 8 foot somewhere.
Well, we raised that question,
think
and
we
that's
said
why I'm
6 or
asking,
8.
that's why I'm asking if the fence height is adequate in relationship to the neighboring property to provide the screening that we're looking for. Because, the 6 foot height is a minimum. We have landscape standards. Obviously, landscaping grows at a greater height than 6 feet. The minimum size at the time of installation is, for evergreen trees, is 6 feet. But we know that those are gonna grow approximately a foot a year, and you're gonna ultimately have much larger landscaping than that. That's why I asked the question, because I've raised this concern about the elimination of that canopy in the back before. I want to make sure that there's sufficient screening so that is basically not seen. And I know that the point of it is that those houses are a distance away, but that's all deciduous tree cover back there. And so consequently, that's why I asked the question.
So may I address that?
And, yes.
So, I think it's important to note that the canopy that we have back there is approximately 14 to 15 feet. So for me to put a fence back there that fully screens it, I'm putting a 15 to 16 foot fence, which obviously isn't realistic. We fully intend to meet all lighting standards. Typically, those are measured at the property line. So that doesn't mean that, the houses behind us, they will see light, because they will see a site that is lit up. But at the property line, we should be meeting all of your township ordinances.
No, we have separate standards for signage, lighting.
And we intend to meet that, I think.
You've given me no information to say that you have.
Yeah, the challenge that I'm running into is, it's not that I completely ignored it, I did work to I reached out to our signage vendor and I said, hey, I need information to try and address this standard. They don't have the calculations and the data for my electrical engineer to be able to put together a photometric plan to demonstrate that at 32 feet away, the canopy sign will not exceed 0.3 foot candles over the ambient lighting. I can demonstrate that once it's installed, and if it doesn't meet it, we can shut them off. I can continue to source different consultants that can try to find that information for me. I can look at comparable sites. It is not my intention to kind of thumb my nose at the township. We obviously want to meet it. Just with my vendor currently, they don't have the information that I can pull that together and satisfy the spirit of the ordinance right now.
I personally would like to see an 8-foot fence. I mean, I know we've talked 6 or 8, but for a commercial property, I just feel like it would be better at 8 feet.
And I'm fine providing an 8-foot fence. That's not a problem.
Before we get off that. Because Dick asked the question, he wanted an answer about 6 or 8 feet. That's the way I heard it, that you wanted an answer, and I'm asking, did you get your answer?
Yeah, I am not saying that the 6 foot is inadequate, but they just haven't addressed that, and there's a way to do it.
Gotcha, okay.
I know exactly
wasn't
the way to
understanding
do
what
it, but
you
it's
were
not my
saying.
job to tell them how to do it. I mean, it's just to provide me with some elevations from the neighboring property in comparison to where this height is, and demonstrate. You're gonna see it in the next, a later site plan that you're gonna see, because it's the same kind of concern. And what they've done is a cross-section showing the difference in elevation between the neighboring side. This would not be, this wouldn't be an issue if they weren't putting this illuminated canopy, which I've raised a couple of times in, at the rear of the site, which is, which could be in a direct line of sight from some of the neighboring residents. If that weren't the case, I think the screening is probably perfectly adequate. But that has been the main concern for me. If that signage were not illuminated, this would be much less of a concern.
It's a line of sight issue.
Correct.
Or is it a line of sight and a brightness?
Oh,
I think
both.
it's both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't it say
I mean,
that their
so can
signs
I-
are on some kind of a timer, that they don't go 24/7?
So those canopy signs will not be on all the time, no.
What are the
You'll-
hours?
So this store will close between 7:30 and 8 PM, and those lights should shut off right around that time, maybe a little bit later. But no.
So maybe we get something in there that says the time that they'll shut off, because 8 PM, that's not very late. I mean,
Well, that's the information I've asked for and I haven't received in terms of really what the plan is here to deal with that. So, that's,
Okay, Dick, how should we proceed? What would you like to see, so that you can tell us, I'm happy?
well.
Because you're not happy right now.
Well, no, the applicant would, the commission, this is an issue that is resolvable. But it is gonna be, it needs to be resolved in a manner where I'm satisfied that those neighboring residents aren't gonna be affected. Because we've already heard how other lighting along Dixie Highway is impacting them. Just as the gentleman talked about the church, let's not start a new problem, then it becomes an enforcement problem.
agreed.
So,
If there is a clear-cut means that can be demonstrated that, that this is not gonna be obtrusive, I'm more than happy to take a look at it and
Well, how is going off by 9 PM less obtrusive than everything else on that road? You have 24-hour fast food restaurants.
Mr. Daly, you guys can
gas
prove
stations.
anything you want, but I am suggesting to you, I just heard another issue tonight about something that is an enforcement issue about music being played. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Right.
And, we've got other issues along Dixie Highway. I totally agree with you.
And why not get in front of the problem? I mean, if they were to say canopy sign to be turned off by 9 PM every night.
Well, that can be in the
Well-
motion, yes.
well, but I question, if you wanna stick to that principle, why 9? In winter, it gets dark at 5.
That's correct.
So if I may, what I would
Well,
ask,
May I?
Yeah.
There are unresolved issues in any site plan approval. Some of them that can be resolved and our approval can be made conditional to. Some of them that are more significant should be resolved before we approve it. It strikes me that this is an issue that could be a condition of approval, because as you said, it's pretty simple to prove that the fence is high enough for our ordinance and that the lighting meets our ordinance. Do you agree with that statement?
Correct.
Okay. So, go ahead.
I was going to say the same thing, Mr. Chair, is that, I would ask that this be a condition of approval, that we demonstrate it to staff before building permits are issued. The other thing I would note is that the orientation of that canopy is facing, Chuck, what's the orientation on this? We do north?
North is up and to the right.
Okay, so we're effectively facing north. As I understand the ordinance, we have to measure, as I said, 32 feet away from that light source. So the measurement point will still be on the site. So even if we added another 20 or 30 feet, I'm still not off the site with that measurement, and that far away. Again, I will get the measurements and demonstrate it, but I can almost guarantee
You are citing
it's.
the wrong provisions of the ordinance.
I apologize.
Yeah,
then.
you are. I mean, I know it's difficult, but we have specific sign illumination standards that
Right.
are different than our lighting illumination standards. Because illumination from signs is different than illumination, because it's a different methodology. Anyway, I mean, they are gonna have to demonstrate, and, it's gonna have to be empirical as far as I'm concerned, of some manner, or some other types of measures. There could be some shielding. There's a variety of different methods that you can do to shield lighting. But, frankly, from an internal your site, you have to meet the sign illumination standards, but that's immaterial to me. The impact on neighboring residences was more concern to me. So that's what I'm concerned about.
No. Dick, I got a question here, on process. The gentleman back there, and I don't want to get back into music, other than to say he brought up the music thing, and he blamed the planning commission 20 years ago for his problem. And I'm not saying it's not, okay? But I have a problem with putting some of these very complex issues into a condition, because my guess is we never see whether that condition has been met or not, we as the planning commission. Now, so we're gonna say we're gonna approve it on condition that this is, and then we never revisit that issue, and if it doesn't work right, somebody is gonna come back, a neighbor, and say it's our problem, and we didn't do our job. So I'm totally against this conditional approval. It's either proven or it's not, period. And
If I could make, what has happened in the past, and Brian is aware of this, we'd be happy to provide you with a report how these conditions are met.
That's what I would like to see.
Well, that's different, but we don't get that.
Well, you have, because it's not occurred yet. You've never had a circumstance yet on this commission that you've been on it that's occurred. But if you want to report about how the conditions have been met, I'll be happy to provide that. Happy.
Yeah, well, that's certainly, but I think we need some assurance that, yes, it has been met, because we said we approve it based on that condition, and then we just go off into the night and.
All you have to do is put that in your motion and you'll get it.
And we're requesting what from you?
That whatever conditions that you are applying to this plan, that you receive a report back. And I don't know, Brian or Jason, do you have any unaddressed items, or are these all construction plan issues?
From a civil engineering standpoint, it's all construction plan.
Okay,
related
so
items.
all you need to ask, put in your motion that I report back to you how your conditions have been met, and we'll be happy to do that. That's hasn't been an unusual thing to happen.
Okay, now the only thing we have to do is figure out what the conditions are.
Well, I think my report lays it out
It
for
does.
you.
Okay.
But that's up to you whether it's clear enough.
You didn't
or
get a
not.
copy of it.
I've been taking
I'll share
notes.
with you.
I think,
Okay.
maybe,
Jason?
if this is the direction that we're going, I guess I'm not in the same mindset. I believe that what we say here, and then this is our role to approve a site plan. Potentially, it's not our role to enforce that plan. But if we want a written report, maybe we should just ask for a written report if there are infractions rather than every single time. If something doesn't work, you tell us about it versus every single plan we approve, we wanna spend time to go over it.
Well, it's not every plan, it's the ones that are conditional.
There's a lot of conditional site plans I think we're doing.
I think pretty much every site plan
Yeah.
approved has conditions.
Yeah.
Probably
I
every-
had
every
20
site
years
plan
on the
I've ever
planning
worked on is
commission, I don't think we ever.
I don't
had
wanna
a clean
stack
approval.
more
I
and
really
more
don't.
and more paperwork for us to review after we've already agreed on it, like,
How long is a report? A page, two? If
It'd
it's-
just be a memo. I mean,
yeah.
I'll do whatever the commission wants.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'd be happy to do whatever you want.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may, Dick, correct me if I'm wrong, but these conditions, when we finally go to submit our building permit, those permits are gonna run through the planning department. You'll review the approval letter, you'll review all of those conditions to make sure that we comply before you give permission or before you grant approval on the building plans, correct?
Yeah, the next step is construction plans for the site
Right.
itself. So Jason and Dick and I all review the construction plans for conditions of approval. Jason reviews it from the civil aspect to make sure it meets our design standards. And then once we get a blessing from them, we get a letter of credit, whatever inspection escrow is necessary for the utilities. Then it goes to the building department for building permit review, plan review of the actual structure, and we still sign off for zoning compliance before that's issued. And the building permit isn't issued until we get the blessing of all of us on the plan, and we have all monies in hand.
And what kind of escrow is held?
It's an inspection well, currently they have an escrow right now, but, based on the valuation of construction and materials, there's an inspection escrow and bonds, letters of credit.
Like
That-
percentages of something?
Yeah,
And how long are those held?
they're held until a C of O and all site plan conditions have been met in terms of landscaping, lighting, we inspect all of that.
so that's already a process.
It is.
Yeah.
It's been a process for the last many, many years.
And how many times since January did we fail that process?
0.
And how many times since 2 years ago, January, did we fail that process?
0.
So do we wanna add more paperwork to say that we don't have a problem, we're creating a solution to a problem we don't have? Forgive me if I'm being short.
Well, I welcome your comments. I think I agree with you.
I think we're kind of moving out of the planning commission's lane. We have a certain role, and now we're trying to deal with enforcement. That's not our role.
I agree, we have staff and we have to trust our staff. If we don't trust our staff and they're not doing a good job, we have to replace staff and consultants. But in my opinion, I trust these guys.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm not willing to hold our current staff hostage for perceived sins of prior staff.
Yeah.
And you can talk about those perceived sins. I'm not aware of any of those as being the result of a condition of an approval not being enforced. So, I understand your concern, and you have a right to vote the way you want, but my attitude is, I trust that these people are gonna do it, and I will hold that trust until proven otherwise. I think, hold on, did you wanna say something, Joe?
Well, I just wanted to say, I don't believe that requiring a letter, whether or not we get it or even ask for it, is immaterial at this point. I don't think that's an enforcement issue. If we say this is approved on this condition, we're not enforcing the condition that's met, we're enforcing that they're intending to meet it, here's the plan, how we're gonna do it. If 3 years down the road, they don't do it, that's enforcement, that's not our bag.
I think it's sort of duplicative because we take a vote and once that vote passes, that's what our final, that's our signature,
That's right,
right? So
that's it. And unfortunately, if it doesn't get done,
that's not on us to address though.
but he wants to make it on us because he came up there and said the sound problem is a planning commission problem because we didn't do something. Not us, but this was in 2004.
Yeah.
But that's,
You know, so,
Different-
you know,
different.
we wanna
that's
avoid
an
that kind of
inaccurate,
stuff.
I mean, I understand his frustration, but that's, the planning commission did nothing wrong.
Right,
You
Right.
know, the planning commission, it was never represented there's gonna be any outdoor music or anything like that. The planning commission did nothing wrong when they approved Bridgewood Church. Things happen after sites are built many times.
nobody's arguing that.
Yeah.
Nobody's arguing that.
And that is an enforcement problem,
Yes,
so.
All right.
I just,
I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, I just wanted to say that I will always tell the commission that if you, that you are asking us to enforce a condition of approval that I'm not comfortable with, I'm gonna tell you. Because there have been times in the past where a commission has asked us to enforce something that I really feel is more appropriate for the commission to approve. And so that's why I will, you know, like building architecture, for example. You know, I don't want to substitute my judgment for yours when it comes to something that is the appearance of something in your community. But if it's a landscape requirement or a lighting requirement or something that is really pretty clear cut, we don't have any problem, you know, with a conditional approval in that regard. It's just anything that's really open-ended, we don't feel comfortable with. And I'm gonna tell you not to approve it at that point or postpone it until you're satisfied. That's not the case here. These are all technical issues that need to be resolved. And if they don't get resolved, we bring it back to the commission for resolution. If we reach an impasse with the applicant, and I'm not gonna sign off on something that I don't feel is appropriate, we bring it back.
So that's a process too.
Correct.
Okay.
And it has happened.
Okay, let's move along. Other comments from?
I do have another comment.
Yes.
Cross-access easement, is that approved that we don't have the cross-access easement?
That's a commission decision. You have to, that was why I raised it in my report.
Because the fire department indicated that would be an issue, so I'm just asking you.
I don't think that the fire department didn't. The fire department was more concerned about their internal access and circulation. I don't think that they really had, you know, a comment about the cross-access. I don't recall that, I'm sorry. It is an issue with us, because this has been a policy that we've tried to enforce. Well, it's not just a policy, it's in the ordinance that we've tried to enforce, and as you can see, it was enforced to the south.
Well, why wouldn't we enforce that still?
There are certain cases where it may be impractical, or there might be physical reasons why it can't be done, where the commission might choose not to enforce it. But it is something that you have the discretion to either require or not require.
Did they address the fire issue? I think I read that they did.
They did.
Yeah.
In my opinion, the cross-access, when we pulled the building forward to create, you know, if we pull buildings forward on Dixie Highway, in theory, you create interest and slow speeds down, so we're trying to pull buildings forward. If the building is forward, you can't really have a cross-access because you're back into their pay zone and their bailout lanes. So, I mean, in my opinion, we kind of forced them into this layout after 3 or 4 previous layouts and discussions. And all the discussion I remember was that we wanted the building forward, and that kind of made the cross-access go bye-bye, from my recollection.
Yeah, I recall it the way you do. I have a little different opinion. I agree that the cross-access on the bank side, the south side, is impractical. But I think you could still have a cross-access on the other side of the property, the north side, either in the front or even in the back. And I agree with the concept. If, you know, the goal is to eliminate the need for people to pull out onto Dixie and create more interaction when they want to, go to a neighbor property. If we're ever gonna achieve that, we've gotta start requiring it. If a guy's in the party store, if that ever gets opened, and wants to go get his car washed, it makes it a heck of a lot easier for him to go to the car wash. And I think, that's how I feel. I think, I don't buy, I understand that your traffic study says it's not necessary. No, it's not necessary, but I think it would be a benefit. So, and I was also gonna comment, the change in the architecture. I am disappointed. I recognize the change you made. I think it's insignificant. I looked at some of your buildings online and found them to be, much more attractive than this, and I'm disappointed that you did not, offer up something like that. Anybody else got other comments?
Would
Go
you like me
ahead.
to address the building?
Yeah.
So, you know, one of the challenges is that a lot of what you see out there of existing Mr. Car Wash facilities were acquisitions. They've been purchased over the last 30-plus years. About 5 years ago, we started our Greenfield Development Program. That is upwards of 100% of what we're doing. You know, we still do acquisitions here and there, twosies, threesies, but not a significant amount. And the design aesthetic that you see behind you is, it is our brand prototype. It's our brand image. And part of what we're doing, not only in the Detroit metropolitan area, but across the country, is building out a network of car washes. And because so many of our customers they have an unlimited wash club subscription, they can go to any of our stores. It's important that there's consistent design throughout all of those stores so that they can be easily identifiable. We heard that there was concern about the barrel roof. You can see that we took that off the building. We went to a flat roof, and then we pitched it slightly to match the tower that was already presented and pitched. You know, I listened to your comments. I know that I'm relatively new to the project. I think you met with Nicole Castron before. But I did go back and look at the comments. To me, my interpretation when I walked away from that video was that it was the barrel roof that was kind of the main sore spot, and so that's what we tried to address.
I just have to comment, we hear the argument you make that you're trying to build a design standard. We're trying to do the same thing.
Sure.
And it gets to the point where who sacrifices to meet the other party? Do you just sacrifice your standards to meet ours? Do we sacrifice ours to meet yours?
Understood, and I think I would offer that as I've looked at your code and your design standards there's a lot of ambiguity in there. You know, I've worked in a lot of municipalities that say, hey, you have to use these colors, you have to have this percentage of material, and there's a lot of specificity to it. That I can answer to. I can design to that. When it's very broad and left up for interpretation, that's very difficult for me to figure out what, get in 5 different commissioners' heads plus staff and figure out what amalgam is going to make everyone happy.
Understood. Anybody else have comments? If not, I will, do you have anything else you want to add?
Nope.
I'll open it to the public. Anybody out there want to comment on this project? Yes, ma'am.
Kathy DeRocher, 5352 Forest Ridge Drive in Clarkston Pines, and that neighbor that backs up to this property. A little bit of my background, I used to work for Kogel's Meat. We're made up to a standard, Michigan standard, higher quality than national. I go for the higher quality. Have you ever been and seen one of these buildings? These car washes, go look. They're ugly.
Hello again. My name is Fred Ritter, 6472 Waters Edge Way. I sent you guys a letter on the 4th of April, and I spoke to that at our last meeting here. I had some questions there, and I don't know if they've been addressed, so if I could ask those questions first. Is there an intention to put a flag there, and will there be elevated lighting for a flag?
You want those answers now?
Well, it's, I don't know that it's been addressed because I haven't looked at what, any new package you guys have.
App,
There's not an intention for a flag.
did you hear that?
I
No
did.
intention for a flag.
Okay. Then I talked also about the bypass driveway because of emergency vehicles, but there've been other instances, and these guys don't know me, but I built with my wife the Clarkson Auto Wash in 1988, and we were there for 30 years. And I talked about emergency vehicles. We had contract with the state police and with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department, and there were instances where they had to get out of line and leave with their lights and siren on. And I think that should just be a concern of having some kind of a adequate exit once they're even halfway in the tunnel, because otherwise the tunnel is the exit. And that's an emergency. I don't know if that's a big deal. But we also had instances where customers would come in and they're with a flat tire, and we had to get them bypassed. And we've had, in addition to the flat tire, stalled engines. The customer's car would stall, and you hit it with a prep gun or whatever, and sometimes water would get in the engine, stall it, and you're stuck. There's nowhere to go. So that was one of my things. The other thing is, on Waters Edge Way, I'm the neighbor to the back, and they have a 22-page sound impact analysis they gave you prior to the last meeting. And I read that and looked at it, but that gets back to the hours of operation. Now, this gentleman's talking about Wednesday night music. When we had our car wash, there was no residential nearby, and that was by design, by the way. So we never had a sound issue with neighbors in a residential area. All of the homes on facing Dixie Highway all have a back deck. So it looks like their impact study has to do with how that sound is going to go into the house, unless I'm reading it wrong. But if you're sitting on your deck having a cocktail or a conversation, we're not interested in competing with that. So I was wondering what they were offering in addition to their impact study for some kind of a sound suppression system. And finally is the lighting. We talked about lighting before. The flag lights, that's a good thing. But we still have lighting from Dixie Highway coming into our property now that we're fully in foliage. It was even worse in the winter and the fall when there's no foliage on the trees. So that's those are major concerns, and somehow or another I was chosen by the subdivision association to be the spokesperson. But the other thing I would just like to suggest, maybe as a chairman of the planning commission or a joint letter from the planning commission, there was a lot of conversation here tonight about enforcement, and you may want to write a letter to the board saying this has come up and you guys should look at addressing and giving Brian more help, because he's a one-man show. He does everything that he does here, plus he's the single guy in charge of code enforcement. And we used to have an individual dedicated to code enforcement.
We do. We did have one.
You do?
But he's part-time, isn't he?
No, it's full-time.
Full-time?
Okay, so I was just gonna suggest a little push from the planning commission might help. It's an election year. I know the guy in the top doesn't want to spend any money.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else out there want to comment? Anybody online? Okay, I'll close the public hearing portion. So let's see if we can summarize. To answer the gentleman's questions, the bypass, Brian, isn't the bypass the, basically the vacuum lane?
Yeah.
It's got a gate in it and they can raise, I don't know how you, if somebody's in the middle of the car wash getting their car washed, I don't know how you could design a emergency access. If you did it in yours, I'd be curious how, but,
In mine, it's a driveway between my building and Mr. B's parking lot. It's literally a bypass
Okay.
driveway.
but if somebody breaks down in the middle of the car wash,
Well, I'm talking about if they break down even just before they get in the car wash.
understood.
You got a double line stacked to get in, there's no way out. So you need the bypass driveway to bypass and continue, because the entrance is one way.
I thought there was a bypass.
Pardon me?
I thought there was a bypass.
Well, I think the intended bypass is the driveway that serves the vacuum cleaner, vacuum stations.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. There's a gate
Yeah,
that's right in the bottom center. So if you do get through the pay lanes and for some reason choose to exit, you'll exit there.
I think the gentleman's point is though, if you're in the very back lanes where there's 3 lanes going into your booth and it's stacked up 3 deep and 5 deep and a cop car's in the middle of it and he has an emergency, how's he get out of there?
I mean, I can't make the whole thing a bypass. So we could use that, I think, use that same analogy anywhere in the lane system. At some point, you know, we just, you know, we do the best that we can. If an officer shows up and it's 15 cars deep, I would maybe suggest to them, if you're on duty, don't get into the car wash, come back at a less busy time.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So, I think the unresolved issues are the lighting, the height of the screening on the back property line,
The shrub height.
the shrub height, yes. The shrub and fence height,
Yes.
was it both?
Clarify shrub height and 8-foot fence, yeah.
Yeah.
And,
And
and the fence, is it, what is the name of that fence, the one that is sound barrier? Like,
Yeah, the Syntec, yeah, well, this
Is
is
that-
that similar.
it's
Yeah.
a
type of-
Syntec,
Yeah, it's
okay.
a similar type of
Is it spelled
product.
out on the site plan that it's
Yeah.
a Simtech? Okay.
But I don't know if it's Syntec particularly, but it's the same, it's a similar type of,
Simtech type.
similar type of product, yes.
And the hours of operation for that, we never did go over that light, that tunnel light. They do have it on the timer, I read that. But
are the hours of operations mentioned on the plans? Anywhere in this?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Would the applicant be object if we were to put hours of operation? in our mo-
Depends what you put for hours of operations.
I was thinking noon to 2 p.m.
Perfect, that's great, yeah.
What would work for you?
So, yeah, as I said, typically our stores are open from between 7 and 7:30 to 8 o'clock. You know, I'm not sure what your local noise ordinance is as far as, you know, typically, I think those are usually like 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So if you're putting a condition on there of operating hours, then that's what I would suggest, is 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just, I wanna help these guys out a little. Our hours were 7 to 7, and we tried to extend them to 7:30. And we never went to 8 o'clock, the business died around 6:30, 6:45.
And he's absolutely right. That's why most of our stores close at 7:30 to 8. I just can't have that be a condition where, you know, if something changes, if the industry changes in 5 years, in 10 years, you know, I need that flexibility to operate my business so that I can be successful. If I'm limited to those hours and I can't be successful, then we have a vacant building on Dixie Highway again.
How about 6 to 9?
So-
Does that work?
6 to 9.
Mhm.
I mean, I'd rather 10, but if you're gonna condition it, I can,
Well, you said
live with that.
your tunnel would stop at 8, they'd give you an hour to do any kind of, I mean, and,
well, and maybe I should clarify, just because the business is closed, we're not processing vehicles, does not mean that I necessarily don't have staff there. I will have staff after hours, I'll have staff before hours, cleaning the site, cleaning the facility, maintaining equipment, things
but
like
the
that.
tunnel light could go off by 9.
The tunnel light typically stays on all the time, 24 hours.
Oh, I read that wrong then.
But you know, remember, the tunnel light is facing Dixie Highway, and you're at a probably 10-foot height, 12-foot height, somewhere around there.
What was the other light you were talking about?
We were talking about the canopy
Canopy
lights, the
light,
POS
canopy.
canopy lights. Yes, those will go off at the end of the business day.
Canopy and back boom
Correct,
lights.
the back arches, yep.
Correct.
Yeah, the only thing that would maintain would be building safety lighting, building signage lighting, that tunnel light, any site lighting, you know, things like that.
So you could basically have operating hours 6 to 10, but all lights to only be on from until 9 o'clock at night.
Well, if you did that, then that alone precludes me from staying open till 10. Because of the nature of the business with all of the vehicular traffic, I need all of those lights for vehicles to safely maneuver the site. So if I have to shut them off by 9, then the business has to shut down by 9.
Okay, but you're saying you shut down by 8
Today,
today,
a
okay.
year from now, 5 years from now, that could be different.
Okay. So again, the lighting temperature of 3,500 Kelvin or less, the size of the landscaping and sign on the back property meets our ordinance. Sign illumination standards are met, and we have to resolve the access drive.
They were met, the lighting?
That have to be met.
They have to be met. They're not, because we
It's a
don't have a
condition.
plan.
No, I'm
It's a-
sorry,
yeah.
your comment says they have been met. Sign illumination standards, no, that's a subject to.
Yeah,
that
no,
they
they need to be
Yeah.
met, correct.
Quit confusing me, Joe.
With the facts.
So, somebody wanna make a motion?
I would like to make a motion for a conditional approval of, let me get the number back here. PC file 2023-012. To approve the site plan condition upon a change in the fence to 8 feet to screen the neighboring residences. Revised lighting and photometric plan with correlated color temperature of 35,000 Kelvin or less.
3,500.
3,500, sorry. All proposed lights have correlated color temperature of 3,500 Kelvin or less. I guess it's the same as above. And that operating hours for the establishment will be 6 to 9 p.m. and lights will be off by 9 p.m. Or canopy light signage shall be off by 9 p.m. The size and number of all the landscaping meets the minimum requirements of the ordinance. And sign illumination standards have been met.
Mr. Carlisle is taking copious notes.
Is that everything?
I think you covered. I'll support the motion.
All in favor, say aye, or
Wait a minute,
let's go
discussion for-
individual. Yeah.
Little discussion. I just wanna check with Mr. Carlisle.
Yep.
Okay. Everybody's good, right?
You had a question?
I have a question. There's no mention of architecture. Are you accepting what's been ultimately? Here's the thing, you guys have the power to make some, to dictate some things here, whether you know it or not. And
Yeah.
I understand Mister has their brand, but, you know, Clarkson has our brand here too. So I just,
Yeah.
when it's done, but coming over,
I get your point. I don't like it, but yeah, the motion would be accepting their design as presented. Okay? Will you take roll?
Yes. Bill Scarborough,
Yes.
Joe Sucher,
No.
Belinda Billings, yes. Brian Kelly,
Yes.
Jason Borsheim,
Yes?
Okay. Plan is approved. Thank you. Master plan update, implementation strategy. We're not gonna make any, there's no more decisions.
Turn down the site plan.
see around, I didn't know you had a guy. I was trying to get your guy.
This needs another guy. Needs three guys. See it?
Oh, yeah.
See it?
Very disappointed, but
Yeah, been there. You know, that's always a tough place to be.
I'd like to get
After 9 o'clock.
Dick, you wanna lead this?
Yes, I can. As commissioners might recall, we presented to you sort of a concept for get everybody's attention here. Implementation strategy. I think at the recommendation or suggestion of your chair, we do this so in a matrix form. As a matter of fact, Chairman Scarborough gave me some suggested things to put in there. The way we've organized this is really by 4 different categories. It's programs, plans, zoning ordinance amendments, well, actually 5, excuse me. General ordinance amendments and infrastructure investments. So it has a series of recommendations in here that are, you know, for the most part are tied back. The one thing I haven't done is document where in the master plan these are supported, but that's primarily because I'm waiting to get our final draft all complete, and then we can complete this. But what I've tried to do is organize these in a manner that are things that would be programs that the commission would either conduct separately or jointly with other committees. Plans that you would prepare, again, same thing, jointly or separately. Certain zoning ordinance amendments that you would be primarily responsible for. General ordinance amendments, which you are recommending that the township board consider. And then infrastructure investments are essentially things that you would be supportive of. You're not gonna make the decision about that, but they are things that are in the master plan or in plans that we reference from other bodies, township bodies that are in the master plan. I mean, that's essentially the organization. I've tried to put a time frame on these things. Some of these things are gonna be ongoing type things, like the suggestion that we hold an annual meeting with the Board of Trustees. That would be something you do every year, so that's a 1 through 5 type of thing over the life of this master plan. create this intercommittee coordination process, which would be regular meetings between a representative of the various bodies to meet on a regular basis to coordinate activities. And you can see the whole thing. I'm not going to read, I don't want to read through all of this stuff. There's a couple areas where I have put notation in here. That's like something, the ROAC suggestions, and I think these might have come from you, Bill, but I'm not, yeah. That these are things that I felt should either be incorporated in a open space plan that the ROAC committee comes up with, or be held off until that plan is done. I mean, a plan of priorities. So those are the only two areas where I had just some questions or some qualification. So I'll be happy, to answer take suggestions, answer any questions of clarification, additions, deletions, the whole 9 yards.
I would like to say, before we get to that, yeah, I did submit a list of things that I thought, and I think Dick did include all of them. But please, folks, I don't want to be the only one putting stuff in here.
Yeah. Well,
Please.
and the rest of them were stuff that I put in there, so
Yeah.
you can't take all the blame.
I can't. So please, yeah.
Just a comment from my side. I think it's well organized, and I thought it kept to the spirit. It looks better than whatever we were looking at before that I think you had mentioned. Hey, we saw a list, like a matrix list. This is pretty clear. I appreciate it, and I think it's pretty concise. The one suggestion maybe that would be if we take this and perhaps integrate it to the master plan, maybe we would put a not an index, but whatever, to kind of help explain to the public. PC would be, planning commission.
Oh,
What
sure.
is it? Just like a
Yeah,
small.
key. Yeah,
a key.
key.
Yeah,
Yeah, key.
key.
Yeah,
Because
okay.
we're putting some
Yeah.
acronyms up here, and I think a key would be helpful for the public.
Yeah, good idea.
Yep.
I did have one comment too, on page 2. Fourth one down, update multiple family housing standards addressing density setbacks and design standards. I think you need to also put and inspections.
and what?
Inspections, periodic inspections.
That's covered under the rental housing ordinance and inspection program, under general ordinance amendments. If you see under the next item down, if you see the fourth line item down there, that is the.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
there you go.
Joe?
I was looking for the right space. How would we, and I'm not suggesting that we do that right now, but how would we realign the capacity or improve the capacity of White Lake Road, Dixie intersection? What if we wanted to move that from 5 years to 3 or 2 because we're already working on, the planning commission, on Neiman's project,
Sure.
which is gonna add tons of traffic to that already worst intersection in the township in terms of,
The timeframe is not a expression of priority. It's an expression of the timeframe that I felt it would take. And I know from experience that with road projects in particular, it takes a long time. So that was now, we could, instead of time frame, we could put these in order of priority. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they would happen any quicker, Joe.
right, oh, yeah, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
because it's up here, we would probably need a process to adjust it without adjusting the master plan because priorities change on the roads and
Correct.
things like that,
Yeah. So that was my thinking, is it said, and in fact, I think when we explain this, you know, there's gonna be an explanation that goes along with this. One of the things I will mention is that the time frame is not an expression of priority. It's just an expression of a realistic time frame for these things to happen. And 5 years may not even be
That's true.
realistic, you know, I mean, it's hopeful, but.
I mean, money, you know, lots of things
Exactly.
factor into it.
Does that make sense, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Joe, are you okay with the things that have to do with ROAC, where they're in the responsibility area?
Yeah, I think I scanned them over and, yeah, I can handle that.
What-
More or less, or assign it out to you and you can handle it.
Well, what would you think, I mean, the two items that I think are like more specific, do you think these should be in here, or they should essentially, we make reference to, you know, the preparation of open space preservation, including key priorities for acquisition and funding options?
Well, let me just give you, you know, a little background on that, and then you can adjust your thinking if you think it needs to be. Like, one of the three subcommittees in ROAC is land acquisition. We changed the name, land identification. You know, parcels that would be walked and the physical characteristics run through this matrix to weight the priority on what at least the subcommittee thinks is a priority for the township to consider. You know, then the whole ROAC full committee would discuss it and then make a recommendation to the board. You know, we've changed our process a little bit. We're not making recommendations to anybody but the township board on anything, because we're a recommending body. We're not gonna get involved in any operational activities whatsoever unless the board tells us to, you know, but our job stops at a recommendation. So, I mean, for land, that's what we're doing. We've got two other subcommittees, communications and ordinances and regulations, which deals with other things. But does that help or confuse things?
Well,
or-
no, it doesn't. I just, I mean, the two, I'm not, you know, I mean, when I say a plan, it could be, I mean, it's gonna be whatever ROAC comes up with in terms of what you are recommending for acquisition priorities and funding mechanisms.
Yeah, okay, so I think the plan will build over time, because
Correct.
let's just say they walk a property a month. You know, like they walk the equestrian park up on Reed Road or whatever it is, it's not my, does that make sense to you? Reed Road, and there's an 80-acre park, I think, well,
Race Road?
maybe, Reese Road, yeah.
Reese Road.
Or maybe that's the high school property.
That's a high school
It is,
page.
Yeah, that's what they did, okay.
School
I mean, so they look at that, they're gonna rate that, then next week, they're gonna rate, or month, they're gonna walk some other property. You know, so they'll be building this plan over time, because the township isn't gonna be dealing with it that quick, if anything, you know. So, don't look for ROAC to come up with a list. You know, look for a list of one piece of property on there, and then two, and then three, and then four, you know, as they do their, you know, inventory walks and acquisition, whatnot. I mean, we did the Clintonwood Park, 19-acre parcel. Okay, that was one. You know, then we're looking at the deer park over there. We call it the deer park, I don't know, over there in Clarkston and Eston, or whatever you wanna call it, for a soccer field on one side, on the south side, because it's already open. On the north side, it would be, well, the original plan was 2008, it was long before my time. You know, but an amphitheater and a beach and what else was in there? But anyways, there's, yeah.
2008.
So I mean, that's already on the list, to be considered and highly ranked, because there's some board people that are, you know, hot to trot on that one.
Well, we actually had grant money
Yes,
from the state that
Right.
we had to give back.
right.
Well,
But anyways, you
I'll
know,
get, I guess, a lot more specific, is that I'm not sure that we should be putting the, even though I feel that successful programs are funded, okay? I'm questioning whether we should, the one item that is somewhat of a concern until ROAC really comes up with their full, or, you know, it's really fully rounded out what you're doing, the one area that I'm questioning whether we should put in there is actually talking about an open space millage, because I don't think that's really been discussed or even vetted at all.
It's being worked on.
Hmm?
It's being worked on.
I know, I understand that, but I guess like the question is, I mean, that's is that,
It's probably just a general, or, you know, a general topic for consideration.
Yeah.
Funding of recommended acquisitions or something like
What
that.
if
you know,
you took the
without
millage out
specific-
and made it just more about general funding?
Yeah,
Yeah.
general fund, because it could be a millage, it could be
That's
Yeah.
grants, it could be.
well, that's
a
kind of
lot
what I'm
different
saying,
sources.
because I think to put it out there until it's been fully vetted, and it's not gonna ever, it's not gonna be a decision of ROAC or this planning commission, it's gonna end up be a decision of the township board.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
that, I think if we make it more general about funding mechanisms, I'm more comfortable with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Going back to the prepare plan for open space preservation, including key priorities for acquisition, just to go back to that discussion, I see that as a major part of what ROAC is doing, and I think it should stay in there.
Oh,
And
yes,
I
but-
actually
but-
even wonder if the PC, under responsibility, should be taken off, because ROAC's attacking it pretty,
Yeah, I mean, they're doing the inventory, they're not doing acquisition. You know, we did change the name of that to just identification.
yeah.
But we've got the list of, what is it? Did we get it from you, Brian? I don't know. Maybe the assessor, that list of the open
Oh, yeah.
parcels, you know?
Yeah, Kim and I worked on it.
Yeah, okay, so we're going down that list, and Dina is, and then they're walking every one of these properties, and then they're ranking them, and so there won't be a ROAC plan for land acquisition. There's a process of identifying lands, and that's gonna grow over time as they get to these things. But heck, there's, what, 5,000 pieces of property on there?
Well, there's 5,400 parcels in the township, so, I mean.
Oh, well, there's not
There's a-
5,000 on that list then. Okay.
Maybe 100 or so.
Oh, there's more than that,
Yeah.
but some of them are like, you know,
Yeah,
instead of,
they're little
instead of 80 acres, it's a 3/4 of an acre, and those
Because
will
it
be
mentions acquisition, maybe Board of Trustees should be in the responsible party also.
well, they're going to be the decision maker,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be ROAC, but ROAC will be the builder of the
Yeah.
inventory, but.
Is it ROAC or ROSAC? I mean, is it
It's
ROAC?
been everything, it's been out,
I mean, isn't it
Residential
open space?
yeah, but
Okay,
people have, you know, put this letter in, put that letter.
okay, I'll put BOT.
Make an
in.
executive decision here, Joe. What do you want it to be?
ROAC is easier, it's one
Okay.
less letter.
So,
We make open space one word,
Okay.
see, then the S is gone.
I'm again gonna encourage you guys to come up with other things that you think would be added. And even though I know Dick and I were talking before the meeting, he thinks if we're pretty set on that, he will move ahead with drafting the final version of the master plan. But I would even encourage you, if in the next couple of days you come up with something, email it to Dick.
I have a question on one of them.
Yeah.
The top one on 2, encourage empty nester housing communities to serve populations over 55. I mean, I guess I've tried to think about what that actually means 3 or 4 times, and
Yeah.
we don't really have age-restricted communities, right?
Well, we do have zoning districts that accommodate it, yes.
Well, I
do.
mean, we don't, just going over the past 12 years on subdivisions we approved, people come in and say, well, we're targeting this age group because it's smaller and empty nesters, but it's not specifically limited to that. I don't-
Federal housing does allow for 55 and over, so, I mean, you can have, and we're an aging population, so.
You know, we don't have to be, I mean, you're correct. I mean, you don't have to be that specific. I think this is just, I mean, this was referring to a growing population of over 55 years of age, not in terms of a matter of restricting it to that.
Right, but the
But-
first sentence, I think he's right.
But I think
The
we
first
don't even
sentence-
have to refer to an age in there, you know, from that standpoint.
But there's no such thing as an empty nester housing community.
The senior communities. basically is what it is.
Is there such a thing?
Yeah,
Well,
there is.
yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and in
I
Texas,
passed that by.
they have a
so-
very large one
There
in
is,
Texas.
and I mean, in fact, most of
Well-
much of what's gone on since post-recession has been pretty much this type of housing.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't younger families living there.
I mean, I would be opposed to designating this as something specifically targeted to seniors. But I like the idea of having it being more general. Seniors seem to be attracted to somewhat smaller homes, higher density, minimal yards, that kind of stuff,
Golf courses,
golf courses.
community space.
And so I would like to see, my thought is that this would include all of that. It would include specifically senior restricted housing as well as housing. And in my community, which we have mostly 50, we have a lot of young people who don't have kids. We have a fair amount of those, I shouldn't say a lot. So I would,
Yeah, and if we want to approve an age-restricted development, I mean, I'm sure that's on the table. I just wanted clarification on
Sure.
it because I just
Yeah.
don't recall having one and,
yeah.
because Independence has all kinds. You have people who've lived here forever who still have their acre and a half because that's how we used to do subs.
Yeah.
Some people want that, some people don't,
Maybe it should be just something like encouraging
Housing.
to address senior needs or something like that without saying it's an age-restricted community. I don't know.
On a side note to the senior housing, due to a family circumstance, me and my wife toured all the facilities we've approved over the last 12 years, and it's an extremely low vacancy rate.
Yeah.
I mean, Monarch has 2 or 3 spots in that whole giant building. Serene Gardens has maybe 4 spots.
It's a
It
booming
was,
business.
and people were coming in here questioning us, what do we do with these buildings? They're full,
I know.
Yeah,
they're full.
Well, you can't deny the demographic trends that are occurring, not just here, but nationwide.
Did you ever think of what's gonna happen when that aging senior community ages out? Then we're gonna have all empty housing, then what?
Yeah,
Well, that's.
Monarch's an apartment building in the front. It's a
Yeah.
very beautiful apartment building. It's beautiful.
I mean, we are, I think that, we've revised the elderly housing regulations. We recognized that particularly the independent living units could well be converted to just conventional apartments. Brian, you remember when we had all those discussions about that? In conversion, and so that's why you'll see in that ordinance that those are generally not as densely permitted as the assisted living, because those are a lot more difficult to convert.
Oh, sure.
Although,
And Serene Gardens interior walls are non-structural, so that could be a warehouse, it could be retail, it could be
yeah.
shared offices. I mean, it could be converted.
Okay, I think I can massage this.
I was just curious as what it meant by that. It was just
Yeah,
a
I
little
like
bit
that in there
unclear
because
to me.
it is an aging population. Look up Robeson Ranch when you get a chance on the website in Texas. I don't know how many thousands of acres it is. It's huge.
yeah.
And they're all single family, and they're all 55 and over. They have golf course, pools. I mean, it's huge. It's kind of like that one in Florida. What's that one in?
The
Villages.
Yeah,
Villages, yeah.
but the Texas version. So, I mean, you should pay attention to that because it is an aging population.
Oh, I'm 55, I know.
Are you an empty nester yet?
I might move into empty nester. No, one's flying the coop next week, and the other one's got 2 years.
Well, you become you're truly an empty nester when they don't move back in with you, but I'm sorry that there's no guarantee of that.
I know. I'm
Revolving door.
confident the first one's not moving back, but we'll
Richard,
see.
his comments, not his, I can't, because I don't know his name, but he said that there was,
Mark Newsom.
was that his name? Okay, he said he couldn't design to the standards of Independence Township because they were too general and blah, 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 blah. Does that, I don't know exactly what he meant by that. I mean, I understand the words general and blah, blah, blah.
I think his name is
Should that
Chris.
be in here
I think
someplace?
it is,
I
isn't
think,
it?
yeah, it actually is.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah,
This, yeah, we can't expect someone to read our mind if we haven't decided what we're
Right,
thinking
Chris
yet.
Cooper.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so,
And even though I didn't like what he proposed, because I didn't think I kind of agreed with him, our ordinance
Yeah.
weren't specific enough.
it's
Well,
true.
and if you
We
look
can't hold them
across
to a
the
standard
street-
that's not there.
Qdoba looks just like it, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's mo- we're looking out as the planning commission, correct me if I'm wrong, we're saying this is what this should be. This is our vision for the future, so we might not have this stuff laid out right now, but I guess that's our job to, in 5 years, in 10 years, whatever, this is when people start turning over those properties, this is eventually what we want them to be. But because we don't have that standard here, we can't really hold somebody accountable to a standard that's not there.
And we all need to recognize, I think we do, when you approve a site plan, that building's gonna be there for 100 years.
Yeah,
It's
for quite a
gonna-
while,
Yeah, it's gonna be there for a long time,
Uh-huh.
and, you know, we can't worry about getting to a character in 5 years or
Right.
10 years. You gotta have a big picture, which is long-term, which is unheard of in this country, but we won't go there. It just, my thought, and I would like to bounce this off of you guys, is that once this gets put in the master plan gets approved, maybe on an annual basis, we make a list of what things on here we wanna tackle in that year. And maybe,
Use this as a work plan.
and maybe we, develop a bullet point list of tasks to tackle each one of those. And then maybe on a quarterly basis, we review it at the planning commission, so we've all seen things, you set goals and objectives, and then you put them in place and you forget about it, and you never come back to it. So if we did it on a quarterly basis, it would keep it fresh in our mind, and, I mean, make that a standing part of the agenda every quarter, so that we keep moving forward and making progress on achieving these things.
That was kind of my understanding, is that's exactly what this was headed towards. So I agree.
Yeah. And,
Any other thoughts?
yeah, and you know, I was just asking Brian, a thought comes up that, you know, if you have that discussion early on, then it helps inform Brian in the budget process
Yeah,
about what to request in the budget for the following year for the things that you want to do, because some things you're gonna need to, you know, hire us, or you might have Jason, or, you know, whoever, somebody else. You might need some assistance with that, and it needs to be in the budget,
yeah. Good point.
so.
And just to be upfront, if we do that, this is gonna probably result in more time placed on planning commission members, because we'll probably form subcommittees to implement some of these things, and it won't be just planning commission, like,
Right.
where the responsibilities might be, for example, us and DDA. Maybe we'd get some members from the DDA and we'd form a joint subcommittee. But it will, I perceive it'll involve more of our time, so.
We can test it out, yeah.
Dick, do you know, I asked earlier, do you know Mike Losey over in Springfield? He's their naturalist.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, we had him last night for an
Yeah.
hour. Nonstop, nonstop. I know everything there is to know about invasive species, more than I want to know.
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, ultimately, we might get involved in, not to the extent Springfield is, because they're a totally different township geographically and mostly every other way. But we haven't included, now that would be part of open space and preservation kind of ideas in terms of how do we preserve it? How do we get rid of invasive species? How do we make sure? I'm not a naturalist, so, you know, don't hold me to any of these words, but how do we keep the monarch butterflies here, whatever that means, you know, et cetera, et cetera. We have not, to my knowledge, included those discussions in any of our planning. Tell me if I'm wrong, Brian, I don't know. Is any of that make, you know, in wildlife preservation, habitat preservation?
Well, in our landscape reviews and, you know, in our landscape plan reviews, we very regularly call out invasive species as not being desired plantings.
For sure, but maintaining what you want in there.
Correct.
And it's like, it just struck me, because I think it was like over a beer or something like that. I don't know if you were in that conversation, Brian, or not, that we were talking about clear cutting all this land right across the street and all the trees that were torn down in that process. But in that process, how much native wildlife, birds, bugs, blah, 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 did we destroy? We erased their habitat. Where did they go? Did we kill them? Are they up in Orion, or where are they? Did we?
They went to Springfield.
Yeah, they went to Springfield, okay. I mean, so when we're talking about like a woodlands ordinance someday, or maybe not an ordinance, but I mean, you know, if you cut down a tree, or you cut down these 20 trees, and they are known for supporting elephants, you have to replace them with trees that support elephants. Now, I know we don't have elephants around here, but, you know, that's the general idea. If we're gonna destroy or misplace something, we need to decide whether or not it's something we want to preserve, and then replace it with something that will preserve it. I mean, those are long-term discussions and
Isn't
all
a
that.
tree survey?
Yes, exactly
survey.
what we were talking about, yeah, a tree survey when you go
We-
knock
yeah,
them
we
down.
discussed
We don't
that
have
last
that
time,
here,
I
but,
think.
to my knowledge, but it's interesting, it's something, you didn't learn this in Grosse Pointe, I can tell you that. We never had those conversations.
Anybody else?
Sorry, Willie.
Dick, you good?
I'm fine,
You got your direction?
I do.
Okay. Next item, consultants report. Do you have anything else?
I've got nothing more.
Approve the minutes, Mr. Chair.
I skipped that, didn't I? Yes, I did. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
And I don't see that
Changes.
signature, I mean, that sentence on mine. Did you add that to the other one?
I have it on this
Okay.
one.
So
Which is
Brian
the size
added,
of-
Mr. Ottman stated he will request that the township attorney provide an opinion letter on the matter, and that's the opinion letter you each have, so I just wanted that stated in the minutes.
So the one in our packet does
Yes.
not reflect that?
Yeah, it's in this one that I have right now that is ready to be signed, once
Okay.
you approve.
So a motion would be to approve the
Amended.
amended minutes provided at the meeting.
Make a motion.
Approved?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Consultant Dick said he didn't have any discussion.
Right.
I was just gonna talk about, follow up on what we talked about last month about improving communications with the various other committees. I'm on Parks and Recs, I discussed it there, they were very welcome to the idea. I asked Ron to discuss it at DDA, which was maybe, or no, not DDA, Safety Pass, which was last night. And I was hoping to get a report here, but he's not here. I talked to Dave McKee about it, and he seemed very receptive. And Ron is on that committee, so he would be a regular planning commission member attending. We don't have anybody on DDA. I've not had a chance to talk to them about it. Brian, you emailed me the contact. I have not had a chance to reach out to him, but I hope I can still find it. I'll let you know if I can.
Okay, just let me know.
Bill?
And
Yeah, on the same topic of this communication, when we first started ROAC, what, a year ago, something like that, there was some concern by Adam, or Klein.
Adam
yeah,
Klein.
Yeah, about a conflict between ROAC's objectives and Parks and Rec. And, you know, and I never quite understood that, but it came up in some conversations, And I met with him about a month ago after we had discussion at ROAC about something, and we found out that that was just a bunch of junk, that we have no conflicts, we should be working more closely together. We agreed that that should be a goal, and we actually even started it last night, a bit at the meeting, and with some cooperative things, and he's gonna invite a couple of us to the next Parks and Rec meeting from, right, just to share ideas. And the more we do that, the better off we're gonna be. I mean, doesn't mean that we're gonna have necessarily integrated subcommittees working together every week, but it does mean we're gonna know what each other is doing, and when it becomes, relevant, we'll talk, we'll get together. And we do have some interlacing, Adam's on ROAC, and of course Sam is on the board, and Tom is on Planning Commission. Let's see, Bill, I don't know, you're on some committee. Yeah, just kidding, so I mean, it seems to be working better with communications, I think, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Parks is your conduit on the ROAC to funding and grants. I mean, because they're ultimately who's gonna write the grant.
Yeah, but it's not gonna be us, we're.
But if your goals are aligned with theirs.
That's right.
On acquiring,
Right.
future land near Clintonwood,
Right,
more land, then you guys are working together on that.
right, and if they want, and if they're interested in that, and they want somebody to walk it and come up with some recommendations on it, we'd be glad to do that for them. That's, we're not gonna ever own the land, we're never gonna run a park, we don't wanna run a park, we don't wanna buy a park, but we could certainly investigate the quality of an acquisition. Why
So-
not? Okay,
Thanks, Joe. DDA, there is no planning commission member on the DDA. I was gonna ask if somebody on our commission would volunteer to attend those meetings. I'm not looking to the DDA to amend their bylaws to require a planning commission member on it. If they wanted to do that, that would be great, but, my thought is initially it would just be an informal,
Yeah, they can.
attendance. So I'm looking for a volunteer somebody who might, I think, do they usually meet in the evening, or they do?
Yeah.
yeah. Bill,
Well, 6
let me,
o'clock.
let
Well,
me,
yeah,
let me give you
if I may,
a
Mr.
better
Chairman,
answer on that,
Yeah,
but I'm
you can't-
interested, but I gotta work out some details.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Okay,
excuse myself.
anybody else, if Joe, falls through?
falls through.
Yeah, I mean,
Joe's not.
If they meet on Wednesdays, right? I
yeah, the
tied up on
nature of
Wednesday.
the DDA, is the fact that you have to live in the district or
Or you have to have
represent
business
some
interests.
sort of
Right,
business.
to be a
or-
member, to be a
Yeah.
member.
Yeah, to be a member of the
Right.
actual board.
Right,
So,
but we don't
I
wanna
mean,
be a member.
But attending is,
Wait a minute.
no, that's fine,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
so the concern, my thought is depending on the participant, what would the outcome be? What,
It's better communication.
Yeah. See, a question tonight.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I don't know what the boundaries are of the DDA. I don't know whether that Mr. Car Wash was in the DDA.
It was.
it is.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think the DDA, now, I have never been to a meeting, so I don't know, but I think that they're concerned with design standards on Dixie, are they not?
That's part of the plan is more, it's actually the pedestrian circulation is really what they're going
The
after,
focus.
the improvement of the streetscape.
Okay,
So, trying to get away from the paved shoulder, which these guys are doing with Mr. Car Wash. So that's really their,
okay. Well,
one of their
but I was
goals.
thinking, if we had somebody that had been to some DDA meetings and we're talking about the design of this building, which everybody seems to be in agreement isn't the best design in the world, but there's nothing we can really do about it. We might have got some input from DDA and say, hey, there's 15 other businesses. Don't hold me to any of this, because I don't know. There's 15 other businesses in the DDA that have design standards like that, and they would really be upset if you come in with a box store looking like that. Now, that might be just an opinion of some existing business owners that could be shared if that was in fact true. I have no idea whether it's true or not, but that's just what
That's a great example. If we had a person that went to their meetings, and then there was something on our agenda that was gonna be in the DDA,
Right,
our contact could encourage the DDA, somebody to attend our meeting.
that's right, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's
Just
just one thing
share
we can do.
information, you know,
Yeah.
and educate us all a little bit better. Nothing the matter with that.
Is the, I think I got it right, corridor improvement CIA?
Yeah,
Is that active?
yeah, it
Is it?
is, but we typically, it's winding down, with the intersection improvement project. So that's essentially the last task they have to finish.
So it'll die,
It's gonna sunset soon.
so it's probably not worthwhile then.
We're basically gonna keep it active to pay down the debt, or the bonds, and pay back for the intersection. Cause
But-
we're still gonna collect the money.
But they won't be planning future projects or anything?
No, and we basically have to hold an annual meeting, so that happens in November, and then December, we kinda do this, it's a public information meeting. So, and we do it in December in conjunction with the board meeting,
Okay.
just to kinda give an annual report.
And just, we talked about ROAC, but that's also another committee, but, and there's no problem there. We got 3 planning commission members on that one, so. So, we're gonna try and keep that moving, improve communications. I have the DDA plan and the safety path plan, so I will email it to all of you, so you can read it at your leisure and fill your stuff. And we will, when the master plan is sent to the distribution, Dick and I talked, in the distribution stage, we'll send it to all those committees and ask them to review it. So, that's kind of, welcome any feedback.
I mean, I'm willing to, along the lines of DDA, I'm willing to, I don't know that I can attend the meetings because they're on site, but like Brian said, I've watched a couple of the meetings, and they are kind of early. They just voted their board member, right? They voted for the chair a month
Well,
ago or something.
Yeah,
they're still
so
kind of
they
moving
meet every
early.
other month,
Yeah,
so the next meeting's in July,
yeah,
and, the last one, they're relatively short.
right.
You know, I think the next agenda item will be just an update of their subcommittees that are working on design for the new acquired property that we're working on.
So I can watch the video to try to come up to speed with them. I just don't know that Wednesday's gonna work.
I understand,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all televised.
Yeah, yeah.
is the safety path televised too?
Not sure, because I think they tend to meet in that conference room.
Okay.
I thought I saw something.
They might be, yeah, I don't know.
But I don't know where they meet or when or anything, but I thought I read something recently where they were doing something.
Oh, and that's all on that, and then I had one other thing, in talking to Dick, we were talking about a lot of the stuff that's available on our website, and, he expressed the idea, and I'd be curious what everybody thinks, including Brian. Would the planning commission be interested if Brian were to put together some sort of and you can blame Dick on this, a website tutorial for us? And
Yeah.
how to access all the information that's on it.
A lot of it's the power of the interactive maps, so I can certainly do a presentation. We have like 55 of them. But
Yeah, oh yeah.
not
I'm
all
totally
accessible to the public, but,
interested. Sure.
you know, just so people can see how we do enforcement and how it's tracked and how it's all public information. And site plans, how they're all posted online, you know, and the progress of each project in town.
So to that extent, we're still in the meeting, right? So we're being televised. Tonight I suggested we might be getting out of our lane, talking about or addressing some of these topics. I might have been right, I might have been wrong, but maybe there's some training that we can kind of cover as planning commission. This is what we should be doing, and if ordinance violations come up, or if noise violations come up, those would be addressed by us or by someone else, that kind of training, so that we're not trying to, play out of bounds.
Yeah, I mean, I went into a little bit of the process after you see a plan tonight. I mean, I think that needs to be hammered home in terms of your role versus what staff.
Yeah, right,
us-
exactly.
What we do, you know, and to give you some idea of the amount of money we collect, how it works, what we do with it on a monthly basis, how much we, you know, how much actual site inspection we do, which is in the tens of thousands of dollars. You know, so there's, I think, for the new commissioners, I think that's a good idea to kind of spell that out.
Yeah,
And that's fine, I have no issue doing that.
sure, great.
Also, Brian, so I assume those are the site plans you have in front of you. Being a new planning commission member, I wouldn't have just come over there and said, oh, can I look at this? I mean, it's in front of you. So if I'm understanding correctly, if I had a question on something that I can't read, I could come at 5:30 and look over the plans here.
You can come anytime because the plans are out on the table, the review table in my office.
Okay.
You did
Tom,
not have a limit?
Nobody's ever
I'm
told me
sorry.
that.
Mr. Pytel comes almost every Thursday afternoon before the meeting with his printouts and goes over the plans with me, asks questions, you know, and it's been like that for many, many, many years. You know, so if you had a or if you're just reading it on your computer and you have a question, send me an email.
Well, when I look at those plans on my computer, I get about 1/8 of the thing. I mean, I print it out and I get a PDF that's the whole plan, but I've got my magnifying glass here trying to figure out, what did they say? I mean, so, yeah, I'd like to know that, so I'll be seeing you once.
Well, that's the thing, you know, you can come in the Thursday afternoon or whenever you're in your travels between the time that you get the packet
Okay.
and
And if you're not there, there's somebody else that'll know.
yeah, we'll
how to
let you
access
in and you can flip through them.
Okay.
Yeah, they're always available.
Can you, so you'll plan on putting something together on that tutorial and
I can do that.
maybe on the, you know, on our responsibilities versus, you know, what
Yeah.
Jason brought up?
Yep.
Anybody else got anything under discussion? No? Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 8:02.